talked about Executive Order 14067. What is your concern on Executive Order 14067, which was just signed with Biden and company only a few months ago? What is your concern 14067?
Yeah, it has a number of parts, and the thing with executive orders, or for that matter, legislation, I could say you have to read the fine print, and you do, but you have to actually consider the hidden agendas. Like, I can read it, anyone can read it, it's a public document, but what's behind it and where they're going with it, and that's really where the urgency comes in. And it's basically an order that accelerates the U.S. movement towards a central bank digital currency, so-called CBDC. These are happening all over the world. Beijing already has one. They're past the prototype stage. They kind of rolled that out during the Winter Olympics last February. Believe it or not, the Bahamas has a digital currency. There are a few other countries that have already gone in that direction. Europe is the European Central Bank is very far along. The U.S. and the Federal Reserve, because they print the currency, they understood the importance of it. They were watching it, but they were kind of taking their time, like, hey, we're the biggest payment currency, biggest reserve currency in the world, which the dollar is, and we don't want to race into something if it's not thought out. And they were in a joint venture R&D program with MIT. Okay, they got some experts there, so that seems to make sense. But all of a sudden, they accelerated it, and they said, we got to move fast on this, and we got to catch up. And that's what 14067 was about. But so that's kind of what you could get from reading. But what's the hidden agenda? Well, first of all, just a little bit of background on central bank digital currencies. It's still the dollar, so a digital dollar is still a dollar, a digital Chinese yuan is still a yuan, a digital euro is still a euro. So it's not a new currency, but it is a new payment channel, and it is a new form of the currency, if you want to think of it that way, even though it's still the dollar. And it goes hand in hand with getting rid of cash. In other words, I'll spend, in a minute, we'll get into what the central bank digital currency, what the hidden agenda is behind that. But as I go through the list of really bad things that can happen, you say, well, okay, but I still got cash. I can go down to the bank and get a, $10,000 or $100,000 in cash. By the way, that's not easy to do. I say that.
It's not.
Legally you can. It's legal. It's not illegal. But try doing it. They'll tell you to come back, make an appointment. They don't have that much money. They got to ship it in. You better show up with like your birth certificate and 5 character witnesses, and then they'll report you. They'll report you to the Treasury, actually, the financial crime
ledger that keeps track of everybody's transactions.
Well, it does two things. It does that, you're right, Kim, but it also, it's kind of like a bank account. So we might quickly end up in a world where, I have an account at a bank, you guys have accounts at banks. Well, those banks are either members of the Federal Reserve System, or they're smaller banks that are correspondents of bigger banks that are members of the Federal Reserve System, like Bank of America or Wells Fargo. Heaven help you with Wells Fargo. But the point being, the banks kind of keep all the books. We might be in a world where you would have an account at the Fed. Kim and Robert and I and everyone listening would have an account at the Fed. We'd have it on our iPhone or our Samsung or whatever our mobile phone is. And if I send you money, the Fed takes it out of my account and sends it to your account. End of story. Kind of like a Venmo type of thing with, larger denominations, et cetera. That has implications in terms of disintermediating the banks. Like, if you can do that, which you can technically, who needs banks? But to your point, Kim, the selling point is, well, it's better, faster, cheaper. Okay, which it is. So, for example, I go to a bookstore and I buy a book with a credit card. So I get the book. Well, the merchant, the retailer, has this receivable, and so they sell it to what's called a merchant acquirer. Merchant acquirers are finance businesses that buy a whole bunch of receivables. So MasterCard and Visa then send those receivables to the banks that issue the credit cards, and then the bank sends me a bill and I pay the bill. So think about that. I buy a book, but you get 5 financial intermediaries. You get me, the retailer, the merchant acquirer, MasterCard or Visa, and the issuing bank. And the total fees are, like 2.5%, 3%. So why do we need 5 financial intermediaries with, let's say, 3% fees to buy a book when you can just have an account at the Fed and everything whips through the Fed fast and easy, and inexpensive. So, and that's all true. That is how it could work if you had this digital dollar. The problem is, but let's assume the banks continue to play a role, because the Fed's job, people talk about, it's the Fed's job, reduce unemployment, squash inflation, now they want a Green New Deal. The Fed's supposed to make sure that nobody lends money to ExxonMobil, even though we're out of oil. But those are like ancillary. The Fed's main job from the beginning, from 1913, really 1907 onward, is to prop up the banks. Like, that's why they're there. So I doubt they'll disintermediate the banks. But either way, you're going to have a faster, cheaper, better system for making payments. But what else? And this is the key, and this is why we're sounding the alarm a little bit on Executive Order 14067. So once it's digital, a couple things. First one or whatever, so they already know your whereabouts. We have facial recognition software. People go, I'm going to wear a mask and sunglasses and pull my hat down. Okay. They have what's called gait recognition software, GAIT, meaning how you walk. Believe it or not, everybody walks slightly differently. Wow. And it's like a fingerprint. So even if you're wearing a mask, they see you walking down the street, they're like, that's Kim, or that's Robert, or maybe. So they already know a lot, and they know your whereabouts. But now they're going to know what you're buying, right? Because every product has a SKU, stock keeping code, stock keeping unit code, with a QR scan, digital scan. They're going to know what you're buying, and this digital currency is programmable, meaning they can block certain purchases or not. So let's say you donate money to Elise Stefanik. She's an up-and-coming Republican member of the Republican leadership in upstate district in New York, or heaven help you if you donate money to Donald Trump. They'll know that, first of all, and you might find that your account's frozen. Or let's say they want to see right now, if you work in a countdown clock on your bank account, and if you don't spend 10% of it in the next 30 days, we're going to deduct, that much. So in other words, use it or lose it. So now all of a sudden, I worked hard, I made this money, it's in the bank, but you're telling me if I don't spend it, I'm going to lose it anyway. So I might as well go spend it. And of course, the idea is to stimulate the economy. But the point is that they did it all through digital banking systems and cryptocurrency systems. So, and they're doing it in China. They have what's called a social credit score. So if you, bad acts are, start with smoking, you're smoking, but you take a train to go to a protest, okay? And there are many runs on the bank. There's a group in China informing, don't pay your mortgages, because, in China it's a little different, because here the builder builds a house, and you guys, you build a house, a buyer comes along, buys the house, gets a mortgage, pays the mortgage, but they get the house. In China, you take out your mortgage before the house is built, and then you owe the money, but the down payment and the mortgage money is used by the builder to build the house, and you move in like a year or two later, but you're already on the hook for the mortgage. Except that the developer stole the money and didn't finish the house through the banking system, and then turn off your ability to buy a train ticket or a plane ticket.
Wow.
And then it goes on from there. You post something, the worst thing you do in China is compare Chairman Xi to Winnie the Pooh. He kind of looks like Winnie the Pooh. So, it's true. And so if you post a Winnie the Pooh meme or something, good luck getting your kids into school. Good luck getting health care for yourself. So if they're going to get rid of cash, and they're working on it, and they're going to put you into a digital dollar, and they're working on that, and Executive Order 14067 puts that on a fast track. And if the digital dollar can be used for all the things I described, which it can, surveillance, account freezes, account seizures, putting a countdown clock on your money, spend
tracking,
it.
actually create molding behavior.
Correct.
What they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So what are the workarounds? How can you get out of that system? Well, if all this is being empowered by digital technology, which it is, you sort of have to go non-digital. In other words, this is the, lean right, go left, or, vice versa. So what are the digital assets that work as money? Non-digital assets that work as money? What are the non-digital assets that work as stores of wealth, et cetera? Well, there's a bunch of them. You can start with gold and silver, but I would include real estate, natural resources, water, energy, et cetera. And you can even do some of this because the government doesn't want anyone to think that they actually think gold is a monetary asset, so they don't talk about it. But if it got to that point, and the government was thinking about doing something like that. And by the way, when people bring that up, I just say to myself, well, you're looking for reasons not to buy gold. Don't waste my time. In 1933, people trusted the government. The government wasn't perfect, but they're like, yeah, happy days are here again. FDR is not Hoover. He's trying his best, trying to get us out of the Depression. Unemployment was 20%. There was a sense that Americans had to pull together and make sacrifices, and if that was one of them, they would go along with it. Today, that's not true. Trust is gone. The FBI is like, Biden's Gestapo. It's not funny. It's true.
It's just it's sad.
And so on. The FBI is corrupt. Intelligence community is corrupt. The White House is. I waver between corrupt and incompetent. I sort of incompetence and stupidity are my default positions because they're a sufficient explanation, but they're actually not. This is all according to plan. So in that world, they might try to do something like this, but they're not trusted. So I don't know how much compliance there would be. As a lawyer, I never encourage non-compliance, but as a realist, I say, well, maybe people won't be lining up at the Treasury stations to hand in their gold. So two things. Number one, the Fifth Amendment still applies. Well, three things. One, the Fifth Amendment still applies. They have to compensate you. Two, if this happened, it would be in a world where gold's already well into five figures, and at least you made a nice. And number three, I think compliance might be sketchy at best. So no, I don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, as J.P. Morgan once said, gold is money, everything else is credit. And that's the world we live in.